First, I'd like to thank all of the people who are watching this streaming because you've been so patient. We're a little behind. And here we are, welcome to the Lawn Chair Soirée. People who are in the room, if you haven't put your name on one of these little rectangles, you might want to do that now because otherwise you don't win a prize or the possibility of winning a prize. I think, oh gosh. Brian has them. Well, tonight we're not going to have an intermission. We're just going to power through. Some of us need to be in bed already, And I need to explain that is this projecting? Is it? No. I can hear you, but not that. Okay, just to say this is recording. And it's being streamed. We're live streamed. Who knows where we are? I think one of the places we are is in Connecticut. Hello. And I know someone from Hudson. Hello. And then I don't know. We'll welcome you. And I'm torn between going to get those books over there. But maybe what we'll do is we'll just take a breath. And we will acknowledge the gift of the land. And we will acknowledge the presence of the original peoples who live on this land, who have lived here from time immemorial, and who continue to live here, and in my experience have taught me the importance of sending greetings and thanks out through the world. So we start with all the people, and we are gathered together as a people, a small group of community, a small community. And we send greetings to the earth and all the beings that live on the earth and all the plants. And we send greetings to the stars and the sun and the moon. And we gather and know that it's important to give thanks for all that we have been given and for the time that we can now share. So welcome, and now I'll explain the door prizes, but I'll go get them. Okay, the message is don't stand too close to the mic. Okay? About 10 inches. Okay. No, these are the ones I just got. Lovely, and I'm very excited to have them, but they're not the door prizes. They might be on the table. Oh, no, yes, they are. Oh, that is. Oh, yes, it is. Who could remember that the book cover was green? Okay, so a long time ago, we decided if we're going to acknowledge the land and the original peoples, then we must do something. We must continue to educate ourselves about their lives. And so, for a long time now, with a few misses every now and then, we've been giving away a book. And this is Thomas King's Indians on Vacation. It just caught my eye, and I thought, oh, I'd like to go on vacation. But it does have the word sardonic in one of the descriptives. And then the second one was, it came on at the time of it arose out of Black Lives Matter, and so Black Lives Matter, and so we have the sleeping car porter, and so to begin, I will read a little excerpt, and somewhere in the middle, I'll read another excerpt, and then we'll have a draw. Okay. So, meet Bird and Mimi in this brilliant new novel from one of Canada's foremost authors, inspired by a handful of old postcards sent by Uncle Leroy nearly 100 years before. Bird and Mimi attempt to trace the journey of Mimi's long-lost uncle and the family medicine bundle he took with him to Europe. Okay, so just a little selection for you. You need to know that he's not thrilled to pieces about going on this trip. According to the guidebook, Prague Castle is the largest castle in the world. Where do you want to start? There's the old royal palace, St. Vitus Cathedral, St. George's Basilica, along with the picture gallery and the Powder Tower. Mimi looks at the flyer she got when she bought the tickets, but the tower is closed right now. Too bad. And there's Golden Lane. That's where Oz said we should go. Oz? He's the guy I talked to at breakfast, I tell Mimi, when you're still asleep. Mimi looks at me sideways. This Oz, she says. He happened to be a friend of Eugene. Oz is real. I don't try to keep the annoyance out of my voice. Eugene and the other demons are something you made up. They're real enough, said Mimi. I just give them their names. If you would get up in the morning, I'd introduce the two of you. This is what happens when you don't get enough sleep, says Mimi. You get cranky. So, have you guys decided between you who's going where? we're such a, what do you call it, fly by the seat of your pants group. So my intrepid colleagues and co-hosts are now going to do the introductions, and I'll tell you what I think the order is. Okay? I think that we just lost Norman. I was going to start with Norman. I was sort of going alphabetically. Louise Carson would be first, but I thought, oh, it might be interesting to start with someone in person, then have a video, then have someone in person, and then have a video, and, you know, we only have 5 people. Slowly, slowly, and see if he guesses that he's on. Am I still too close? Oh, I think so. Stand with your foot at this pink line. Is that good, Ted? Yes, okay. This is the best I get. I wanted to be a stand-up comedian once, but I don't know. I could tell you a joke. Would you like to hear a joke? Oh, okay. We must roll up our sleeves for this one. Okay. So Jesus and, oh, hello. Nice to see you. Come in. You're just in time for a joke. So Jesus and Moses are golfing. And they're on the fifth tee, which happens to be a water trap. So Jesus gets out a 5-iron, and Moses says, you can't use a 5-iron, and now you will know how old I am. And Jesus says, Jack Nicklaus always uses a 5-iron. So he takes his 5-iron and whacks it into the water. He says, Moses, do you mind? Moses says, so Jesus walks through. Picks up the ball and starts to go again. He's still got his 5-iron. Moses said, I told you, you can't use a 5-iron here. Hits it back in the water. Moses says, you're on your own. So Jesus, of course, just walks across the water and starts to go back. And the people behind are getting a little ticked off, and they said, who does he think he is, Jesus Christ? And Moses says, he is Jesus Christ. He thinks he's Jack Nicklaus. We were waiting for you, Norman. And I see you brought friends. How did you get in? Did you go down to get them, Norman? Oh, bless your heart. You say, open the window. Okay.
Broke it.
No. No, we can't do that. Oh, shocking. No. It made me Jack Nichols. Nichols. Okay, now I'm going to turn the program over to Brian. Oh yeah, Brian does the introductions and you do the thank yous because he does it so well. Okay, I can't remember what I say anymore. Okay, here we go. Concussion syndrome. Use your fire. It doesn't really lift up. Use your voice.
Is it pink or is it purple?
Near the
Purple to me.
smoky. Yeah, because
I guess it makes a difference, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. Usually we have an open mic, but we don't have one, so I'm going to take advantage, though, of my position to read a poem by a poet I'm quite enthused about, named Ulrika S. Gerne. She's Danish. These are translations, published by Brick Books. She was shortlisted for a Griffin Prize a few years back. And I just thought that this poem encapsulates the experience of reading and discovery in a certain way, and that's what we're all celebrating, right? So, on the table in the room in the dark house lies the book you didn't know you were looking for. Open to the page with the poem about solace you didn't know you needed. At first the letters, then the words, little by little. The lines disappear as you read them. In the light of the faint dawn that trickles in between the Venetian's dusty slats and unites you with someone you didn't know you are. So that's what we all try to do, eh? in the act of writing as well. So I guess the first reader in this publication's celebration is Norman Cristofoli. He's published several chapbooks of poetry and prose, plus 2 audio compilations of spoken word. He published The Labor of Love literary magazine and has been published in a variety of international journals and magazines. His play The Pub and the new book Relinquishing the Past were both published in 2020. New book of poetry, I should say. Relinquishing the Past are both published in 2020. His murder mystery novel Novembers was published in December of 2023, and I've read the book. I'm one of the... and it's quite gripping and informative, and it has poetic flights and philosophical flights, which are quite powerful, well-rounded characters. So, bravo, Sue. Norman Cristofoli. Okay.
Thank you. Turn off cell phone. Worst thing to happen is if you're up here reading and your cell phone goes off. So, yep, I will. I just wanted to turn off the cell phone. Okay. The book's been out for 2 or 3 months now, or 3 months, and it's well received, I'm happy to say. I've had a number of very good online reviews, and I've had a lot of people tell me how much they liked it. But I'm not going to give you any of the mystery. I'm not going to give that away, the murders or the solving of the murders or stuff like that. It's going to be... I'm just going to give you some character development. So this is one scene. The first murder has already occurred. The police have investigated the crime scene. The detective, Aristotle Boyle, who's the main protagonist in the book, he's already seen the chief of detectives and given him his report. Now he's going to see the media liaison officer because they're going to have to do a press release. So this is the meeting between him and the media liaison officer. Margaret Hines was an attractive 40-something officer with 15 years of experience on the Toronto Police Force. Her natural sandy blonde hair was kept at ear length, which highlighted her artistically oval face and delicately long neck. Her deep green eyes added an acute punctuation to her attractiveness, and her makeup was always kept minimal to enhance the naturalness of her look. She had started work as a civilian dispatch officer and had worked her way through the corporate communications division. Her ability to speak publicly, her intelligence, and her keen ability for an accurate perception and quick response on sometimes surprising media questions eventually led her to becoming the main media liaison officer. 3 years prior to her taking the position, she and Boyle had a short, passionate fling that quickly fizzled out when the energetic sex had abated and they actually started talking with one another. The affair ended amicably, and they agreed to keep a strict professional attitude between them and not interfere with their work. Good morning, Detective Boyle. Stanforth gave me a copy of your initial brief. She immediately started before he could sit. Looks like you have a potential tabloid sensation on your hands. How do you want to handle this press conference? Boyle took a minute to sit at his desk and open his laptop before he responded to her question. Every time he saw her, even when they simply passed each other in the hallway, his primal urges would instinctively arise before he could put them in check. There was always that brief instant where he could envision her lithe, naked body, the skin glistening with moisture, the small beads that formed and slowly trickled between her breasts. She reminded him of the Greek god Athena, and could still hear the faintness of her sighs, the measure of her intensity, and the sensations she embraced. He could still feel the earthquake of her shudder, and the shiver that went through her body like a divine vibration. Boyle snapped out of his reverie and responded, I want to state this crime was a definite murder, and I want to start asking for public assistance right away. We need witnesses or information. The killer appears to have been smart enough to plan it to perfection, or they were extremely lucky and left very little for us to go on. The policy, she reminded him without looking up, is to classify the crime as being a suspicious death until we know for certain. He looked at her discernibly. We already know for certain that this was murder. There's nothing suspicious about it. When she looked at him after he made this statement, he quickly averted his eyes, trying not to look at her body. How much detail do you want to get into, she asked, ignoring the lustful gaze she had caught. In her mind, she was always glad she still had an effect on him, could still bring his blood into a heated passion. Basically, he stammered with a mildly embarrassed voice, we want to state the name of the victim, which I think has already hit the front page of the papers, and the location of the murder. We want the basic stuff about asking the public to come forward if they have any information on the victim, or if they want to report anything they think was suspicious on the night of Friday, November 23rd. And then all the regular stuff about Crime Stoppers and so on. You really want to get a jump on this, don't you, Ari? She said as she looked up at him. You read the brief. This was one of the most brutal murders I've ever dealt with. I've handled cases where psychotic criminals tortured their victims before they died. But this is the first time that I've seen a killer or killers torture their victim and leave him to probably die. That means we're dealing with a different type of psychosis. All right, let me type up some notes and I'll call you when I'm ready, she said as she got up and began to walk to her own office. Say about 20 minutes? I'll get a coffee and wait for your call, he said, as his imagination took him back to that one bead of sweat that trickled down the small of her back. Thank you.
Is this the correct distance, Ted? Wonderful. Norman, thanks so much. I want everyone to give Norman another round of applause. As you can all tell from that passage, Norman has a real gift for writing things with a lot of momentum, dynamism, quite a bit of humor, and quality writing, even if somewhat distracted by the women folk. That's a passage I maybe wouldn't read to my mother, but I'd certainly buy the book for my brother. You know, that would be a good one. My brother and I actually both read one of Norman's books a couple of years ago. We both picked up a copy of The Pub, and we absolutely loved it. My brother went on a camping trip and spent a time in the forest kind of thinking about all these characters. Apparently it was an interesting time, and he was eager to come back and have someone to talk to about it, because he was somewhat amazed by all the things that Norman put into this book. So November's you can get a copy of. Do you have copies with you that were here? Wonderful.
If you go to my Facebook page or my website, there's links to the publisher's
Norman also has a long history of wonderful books he's published. If you want to take a look at any of those, I highly recommend. Norman's very fun to hear, but he's also very fun to read, even if he's not animating it for you at the time. So, I'm sure everyone looks forward to reading it. I certainly do. I've been looking forward to getting my hands on a copy. Yeah, oh, I'm definitely taking one. Yeah. I'll be asking Norman for the price first, but I'll be getting it. I'll be getting it. No, there we go. All right, a fair price.
I'll give it to you for half price.
Sold. Wonderful. All right. Well, great. Thanks for gracing us with that, Norman. Who do we have up next, Brian?
I don't remember the list, but I'll give you the initials. LC. I'm going to play, so go and say the intro, please. Please. Get into position.
Jodi is a Montreal editor, translator, and writer. Deep desire for social justice has been a constant throughout her life. She served as a translator in a public sector union until recently, and in her 20s volunteered in a community group for non-unionized workers while studying history at Sir George Williams University. Jodi wrote for radio. Sounds like a murder going on. Yeah, that's right. All right. Jodi wrote for Radio Canada International, Radio Canada International, no Radio Canada, in the early 1990s on special projects, and her poetry has appeared in International Poetry Review, Ruptures, La Revue des Trois Amériques, and Montreal Soirée. She joined the editorial team of Montreal Soirée magazine in 2015 and is currently serving as a senior editor. She is also on the board of Ensemble Scholastica, a women's vocal ensemble specializing in medieval music. In 2022, Jodi's collection of writings and artwork by poet and playwright Michael Morais was published with White Dwarf Editions. The book is entitled Free, Uncut Poems, Stories, Art, and Drama by Michael Morais. Okay, so Jodi, let's give a hand. Jodi.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks, Brian. So this is the book, weighty, actually 6 pounds. That was published in 2022, as Brian said, and I'm just going to read a little bit from the beginning of the book, the introduction. The book is, it's both art, poems, other writings, a play, and a story by Michael Morais, who grew up in New York in the late 40s, 50s, and 60s, and came to Montreal in the 70s and lived in Montreal for the last part of his life. Had kids here, had his first marriage here, and he died at the age of 45 in 1991. This book is for people who like poetry and people who don't. For people who like art tattooed onto skin, drawn with wax crayons, and sculpted in butter. For drama buffs and comic book lovers. Michael was a bit of a tease. He didn't want you to think he was too easy. His poems and artwork and plays offer glimpses and promises of more. They open a window, catch your eye, and the next thing you know, you're wearing an obsidian eye patch and looking through the lens of his dark subterranean humor. Michael wore his poetry on his sleeve and arguably in his knickers. He scribbled it on bathroom walls and rolling paper and in journals. He typed it on an old manual typewriter in black or white depending on the state of the ribbon, using carbon paper to make copies. He didn't let the odd typo get in the way of the flow. For him, poems were living, breathing, evolving entities built to be shared and spoken in many voices. Poems could be born anywhere, on either side of the tracks, in hospitals or graveyards or public bathrooms, conceived in the throes of passion or while watching cartoons. He was kind of a zealot about poetry, and he liked to do what they call concrete poems. So he wrote a poem in the shape of a Z that says, "The purpose of poetry is to amaze." And then he wrote a poem as a maze. And then he wrote another poem which gives the answer to the maze. So I'm going to start with insects like my poems. They nest in the typewriter, crawl across the page, chewing corners, hop from key to key while I write. Wasps circle above. Spiders swing from silver cords. Horseflies buzz like Messerschmitts. Fleas leap with approval. Cockroaches climb the walls. Termites rise from the floor. Crab lice and maggots appear spontaneously. I hope you will, too. Sometimes the poetic act is the urge some call romantic, to reach every thought, desire, feeling, sensation, deed, every star, cloud, breeze, tree, twig, leaf, to reach each and every last speck of every single living thing from every galaxy within the universe, including each and every molecule and atom from each and every single last one of you inside. And then, when the time is right, letting it flow out through my pen. The next poems are from a section of the book that's entitled High and Holy Land, about his stay in Israel and Palestine in the late 80s. Calculating the geometry of maps, the alchemy of transmutation, the miracle of transubstantiation, turning two-dimensional lines and dots on paper into three-dimensional roads, rivers, and towns by being there, populating them, adding substance and density, time and motion, being a verb, making things happen. The feeling of destiny and the knowledge that one's home is within the sack on my back, the stuff in my pockets, the wind on my face. The land leaping to greet the soles of my feet. In the air, the light that sustains me, moving in many colors, all about me, touching me, moving me, touching, all things, moving, light. Each time you hear something overhead, you say, just another airplane, and go, if you can, back to sleep, knowing the next time could be different. What can I do, we think, while great nations prepare for war? Legions of nuclear generators and stockpiles fester upon the fragile surface of the earth, which can't help but explode by accident of nature, man, or attack. Small wonder the moon, after all these years, has never turned her back. For Miriam, who weaves through mourning and grieves for each tomorrow before her eyes give way, forever gray, clouds cry on dry sand, a tree grows from Holy Land, for Abraham is dead. Teshuvah, or repentance, not seen as penance or pain. It is its removal, a returning to the source and retuning. This poem is from, it's actually part of a longer prose poem, not from Israel and Palestine, from New York. At times I find it hard to say what I mean, to stay on the track all the time. A depression has settled upon me unknowingly. I am without power or courage to fight, unable to leave the house, to get to the French test, doctor's appointment, to get a job. I make rituals, light candles and cigarettes, while I wrestle with words, pinning some to paper with a pen, compelled to produce poetry to make up for the fact that I am alone and in pain and cannot leave the house, afraid of what may happen. Anything can once you go out. Unable to remember my childhood prayers, I call myself names instead. He wrote a long, long, long run-on poem. I'm going to read just a few excerpts. He liked to have fun with poems, and he used to think they would be good graffiti in bathrooms, where people can add to them. And okay. A good poem is seen and not heard. A good poem knows what it's told. A good poem knows its place. A good poem is a man's best friend. A good poem is a man's worst enemy. A good poem is there when you need it. A good poem can keep you up all night. A good poem will respect you in the morning. A good poem shows its ass. A good poem is easy to get along with. A good poem never rests. A good poem never gives up. A good poem responds well to attention. A good poem goes for the kill. A good poem is an act of trust. A good poem knows how to beg. A good poem gets around. A good poem can grow hair on your chest. A good poem thinks on its feet. A good poem never stands still. A good poem can last a long time. A good poem can go on and on. A good poem can disappear in front of your eyes. A good poem goes to parties. A good poem stays home. A good poem can cook. A good poem knows how to hold its drinks. A good poem can even sprout wings. A good poem is musical. A good poem can sing. A good poem can satisfy you. A good poem won't slam the door. A good poem always leaves them asking for more. I think we'll end there. Either that or we can end with a love poem, but I think I've given you enough, yes? Yes. Thank you.
So Jodi, if I'm not mistaken, the book is called
Free.
It's called Free. So wonderful. So this amazing book is going. It's on sale here. It's going for
$100.
$100.
Which includes a little cloth tote bag.
It has a little tote bag.
Has
That's a
poetry
wonderful.
as a Manitoba being.
Wonderful. And don't forget, given the size of this of the book, it is a natural bicep toner.
It is. It's a weight-bearing.
Yeah, something a cat or a small family could sleep on, of course.
Yes, exactly.
But beautiful,
And
beautifully.
can stand in as a table.
That's absolutely
A
right.
coffee
Yeah. I just want to say, Jodi, I was really moved by how much reverence and love you read those poems with, and of course you brought your natural charisma to poems that already had a great sense of humor and a sense of awe and amazement with the world. As someone said, amazing after the maze poems. That was very clever. Whoever said that. That was very funny. Yes. So thank you for sharing all those with us, and of course, quite a rich variety of things you can get from this book, including the different genres and art types. So if you have if you're looking for a tote bag, at the very least, don't hold out. It's wonderful. Thank you so much. So Brian wants to take a photo of me, but I think if he's not, he might come up and introduce the next author, if we know who. He's gone, of course, just like Jesus on the golf club. Improvising. It's backwards, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Do you know who LC is there, Brian?
Trick question.
So, let's see, should I introduce SP Goncarova?
No, you're not paying attention, dear. Oh, you didn't turn it on yet.
Okay, so we're going to introduce Louise Carson.
She's going to be on the screen.
On the screen.
You're coming soon. But we're waiting for we're also waiting. Oh, there's the light. The light is shining.
The light is there, okay. Oh, I see myself. How strange. There we are. Okay. All right. So, I'm born in Montreal and raised in Hudson, Quebec. Louise Carson studied music in Montreal and Toronto, played jazz piano, and sang in the chorus of the Canadian Opera Company. Carson has published 14 books: Rope, a blend of poetry and prose; Mermaid Road, a lyrical novella; A Clearing, a collection of poetry; Executor, a mystery set in China and Toronto; Dog Poems, a collection of poetry; The Last Unsuitable Man, a thriller set on the Sunshine Coast; her historical fiction Diesel Woody series, In Which, Measured, and Third Circle; and her Maple Mysteries series, The Cat Among Us, The Cat Vanishes, The Cat Between, The Cat Possessed, and A Clutter of Cats. Her poems appear in literary magazines, chapbooks, and anthologies from coast to coast, including the Best Canadian Poetry 2013. She's been shortlisted in Free Fall magazine's annual contest 3 times, and one poem won a Manitoba Magazine Award. Her novel, In Which, is shortlisted for the Quebec Writers Federation Award in 2019. She has presented her work in many public forums, including Hudson's Story Fest 2015, as well as Montreal, Ottawa, Kingston, Toronto, Saskatoon, and New York City. She lives in Saint-Lazare, Quebec, where she writes, teaches music, and gardens. So, without further ado, or with further ado, we'll see. We never say with further ado.
I have to silence.
Yes, this is definitely with further ado.
Hi, it's a lovely sunny morning, just a few days before the lawn chair soiree, and I'm here chatting with Jan Jorgensen. My name is Louise Carson. I'm going to read
I'm sure Michael's here, like making the psychedelic thing Hi,
It's a lovely sunny morning, just a few days before the launch air soiree, and I'm here chatting with Jan Jorgensen. My name is Louise Carson. I'm going to read a short excerpt from my seventh book in the mystery series, The Maples Mysteries, and it's called The Cat Looked Back. The cat paused outside the low wrought iron fence in front of his house and listened. Odd. She usually called for him to come inside around this time. His outside errands accomplished, traces of other cats carefully sniffed, his own saliva added on, a bit of careful digging in someone's garden, perhaps the bark of his favorite shrub in the churchyard shredded a bit more. He'd return and, hidden, wait for her call. Look, 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 it would sound, soft yet clear, and he would make his way back to her, always careful to wait a moment so that, once she'd caught sight of him, he could run to her the last little bit of the way. She'd bend over, pick him up, and cuddle him, say, "Ah, mon Luc, mon petit Luc," and he'd begin his mightiest purr, push his head up into the hollow place under her chin, and mark her as his own. But tonight, nothing. He sat for a few more moments, grooming his short gray and white fur, then walked up the straight cement path to the front of the building, climbed the one low step, and paused to look in either direction along the porch. She was not sitting on any of the comfortable old pieces of furniture arranged there. On the other side of the partition that separated his house from the neighbors, he saw a figure sitting. It shifted its position and something creaked. It wasn't her. She wouldn't be over there. He mewed tentatively at the front door and waited. In the distance, he heard the sudden sound of cats fighting or mating, which was sometimes the same thing. But he resisted the temptation to run and see who it was. After a few seconds, he left the porch and trotted around to the left of the house. Perhaps she was in the backyard where she grew her few vegetables. As he trod the soft grass, he thought he heard look, 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 but it was only a mourning dove cooing sleepily to its mate up high on a wire. He rounded the back corner of the house. There she was, but not upright, reaching for him with greedy, affectionate fingers. She was on her stomach, her nightgown spread out on the small lawn. He crept up to her face. It was turned sideways, her mouth open. Look, he heard. He licked her cheek. Usually she would laugh and flinch away from its roughness. Not tonight. Look, she breathed out. He heard the neighbor's back door open quietly, then close. He crouched and waited. Soon she would get up. Soon, surely, everything would be all right. So that sets the scene. It's I like to write what I foolishly call a catro, which is from the cat's eye view at the beginning of each of the 5 or 6 sections of the books. And what that lets me do is give the reader some information that perhaps the other humans who weren't at that scene won't have had. It helps open up the mystery.
Do you want to read another portion?
Yeah, I have prepared 2, so I could read the second one. This one's completely different, so it involves humans, and it's quite far along in the book. And what I like about this one is that it shows a little bit of character development, which I think is the most important thing in any work of fiction. Shows a little bit of humor and a little bit of local color. Marion, sit down. Marion, peering over the side of the ferry at the gray turbulence below, half twisted her body and flumped down on the metal bench next to the railing. She thumped the seat with her hand. It's cold and hard. She gazed again at the water close to the ferry. I was looking for fish, she explained. Bertie rose to the bait. Why would fish be leaping out of the water close to a large, noisy ferry? I was looking for dead fish, came the dignified reply. Last time I took this ferry, back in the Stone Age, muttered Bertie. She glowered at him for a moment, then reiterated. Last time I was with Fred. It must have been in the 1950s, and he'd read about the pollution in the Ottawa River being so high the fish were dying. Not that we saw any that day. So, she concluded triumphantly, I was checking to see if things have improved. Bertie shook his head. Makes absolutely no sense. Prudence piped up, oh, things have improved. We couldn't swim here sometimes when I was a child. She added mischievously, back in the Stone Age. Bertie's eyes twinkled. No, you're not as old as Marion, Prudence. You were around in the Bronze Age, maybe even the Iron Age. He added, ow, as she lightly punched his arm. They stood side by side at the railing. Marion had closed her eyes and tilted her face toward the sun. They'd decided to make this a morning trip, so Marion could be back for a rest by mid-afternoon. It was cool out in the middle of the river, and Prudence, thinking of how deep the water was, shivered. Bertie put his arm around her. Cold? Not really. What's that expression? I feel as if a goose just walked over my grave. Surely, in your case, considering where you're living, it would be a cat who... Never mind that. No talk of graves today. He squeezed her shoulder. It's a lovely day, and we're afloat. She smiled up at him. There's the maples. She pointed to the pile of rocks that marked the tiny beach where Jerry's canoe lay beached. She frowned. Maybe she should drag it up the lawn and stow it in the shed. Surely Jerry was finished canoeing for the season, considering her condition. Land ho! Bertie cried. Prudence turned her head. They were past the middle of the river and closer to Oka than Lovering. The yacht club on the left, the few houses, were dwarfed by the church, 100 or so feet from the pier next to which they would land. Thank goodness there was peace there now. No helicopters, army, or police vehicles. No Maggie looking across at conflict from the maples. Better get you back in the car, she said kindly, bending over Marion. She was surprised to see a few tears on the old cheeks. Marion opened her eyes. Memories, was all she said, but it was enough to bring a lump into Prudence's throat as she gave her assistance. Memories, indeed.
Thank you, Louise. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Jan.
Now there's a person and a microphone. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that sounds all right. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us through some of the technical difficulties. Obviously, in dealing with all these different medias, this is bound to happen. It's all good. Was Ted not supposed to turn off the projector? So yeah, thank you to Louise. Is she on the call right now?
I think Louise is here, so speak.
Oh, wonderful, Louise! Thank you so much for reading that. It was wonderful, very sweet. I'm a big fan of all of your readings. Yeah, can you look at the camera? Not sure where to look. Yeah, thank you. Obviously, we've had the pleasure of having you read from a few different cat books, and I always find it so interesting, your perspective, and of course the care you put into a lot of the cat meditations, the things that cats kind of tend to think about and say. Very, very, very entertaining. And we have a number of your. We have at least one of her books here.
Oh, some of her books, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So feel free, everyone, to take a look at those.
You contact me if you want to buy Louise or Sarah Beth's book.
Yeah, yeah. Make sure to talk to Jan if you'd like a copy. That's wonderful. Yeah, and so Louise won't be able to respond to anything I say, or will we be able to hear? Well, just I want to extend my thank yous for recording that, of course, and for being here tonight. So yeah, wonderful.
I'm going to just say something. I just want to say, I don't remember if I posted it on Facebook, but I had a conversation with Louise. Something was wrong with my microphone. So you hear like Jan talking, and then you hear her answer. So you can sort of figure out what my question was from her answer. Okay, but you must watch it because it's really quite lovely. Okay.
Sandra Koukou? Yes, Sandra, yes. Okay, so she is a painter, archivist, poet, and writer, born in Tehran, Iran, during the Cold War in 1956. She looks fondly back at the golden age that was her childhood at the American Community School of Tehran. She studied painting and photography at the Rhode Island School of Design and returned to Iran to help her family at the breakout of the Islamic Revolution of Iran. Distraught with the storm that swept her native land, she figured out a way to save her father from execution at the hands of the Islamic Revolutionary Court at the infamous Evin prison. She edited and illustrated her father's memoir over a 3-year father-daughter collaboration by phone and email between New York and Montreal. She spends her time between her grandchildren and painting portraits and landscapes, and works as a semi-retired assistant archivist of the Anglican Diocese of Montreal. I have also a bio of your father, right? So I'll read that as well, since it's obviously a collaboration. Joseph Heskel Koukou was born in 1924 in Basra, Iraq. At 10, his family moved to Isfahan, Iran, where he learned Persian poetry and the art of calligraphy. Throughout his entire life, he would recite Persian poetry, an art form considered amongst the richest the world has seen. Joseph Koukou married Evelyn David in Tehran and had 3 daughters and a son. An active member of Tehran's Iraqi Jewish community, he supervised financial aid for students to the Atafah school, which, along with an adjacent synagogue, was built by his father, Heskel Abraham Koukou, a man widely known for his dedication to the Iraqi Jewish diaspora living in Iran. He had a successful manufacturing business in the auto parts field, which was confiscated during Iran's 1979 revolution, when he became a, quote, guest of Ayatollah Khomeini's Revolutionary Guard in Iran's notorious Evin prison. Upon his escape from Iran in 1986, Joseph made Great Neck, New York, his home until he passed away in 2012. So, let's welcome and give a hand to Sandra Koukou. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, for inviting me. It's so good to see you doing well now. So I'm going to jump between the book and me talking, just one sentence between each to give you a perspective so it won't all be like a puzzle that fell on the ground and everything is all in different pieces. It was business as usual on a sun-drenched Tehrani day in the fall of 1979 when two well-dressed men entered my office unannounced. They asked me to go with them for some questioning. I asked who they were and what their purpose was. They said they were representatives of the Islamic Revolution and that I was soon to learn about the nature of their inquiry. My blindfold belied only the fact that I was heading from one remote location to another. The journey's end was a square meter of space where the only consolation from the cold and damp was a peephole intended for the guards in the corridor outside. I remained in the belief that they will find nothing to justify keeping me here until I began to recall that a couple of weeks back, they had arrested a man by the name of Habib El-Qanian, a prominent Jewish philanthropist and businessman who met his fate by the bullet within only 24 hours of his arrest. Fear rippled through my body and my soul shuddered with images that conjured what may possibly be happening to my family. So he went to prison. He had a factory for brake linings. It was very successful. And he had just finished paying 17 years paying back the bank. And so he had arrived at his dream, full profitability. And that's when Khomeini arrived in Iran and put most of the capitalists and people who were connected to the old times, like the Shah of Iran and the beautiful life he gave most of us. And so there's not a family in Iran or in the Iranian exile who doesn't have someone in prison or who died or they're looking for. But I consider my story such a miracle. And to this day, I don't even know how I'm standing here telling you this. I don't even expect you to believe it, but it did happen. And I wrote it down. So I helped my dad write it. I didn't want, I mean, his English was a Persian English. So someone had to help him edit the book. So then when we submitted the book to the publisher, Author House, it's a self-publishing firm, they said, so how did he come out? And I said, Dad, you want me to write a chapter? I mean, you knew what was going on inside prison, but on the other side, do you want me to tell you what we were doing? So that's how chapter 3 was written, and that's my chapter. And so I'm going to read from my chapter, and I'll leave the rest for you. So he was put on an execution list. First, he had charmed the judge, and then we were informed that, you know, that was during the court case, we were informed that he was back on the execution list. So there was a mujahid who helped my mother and us trying to get him out. It was a very harrowing journey, but sometimes in life, the only things that are real are the miracles. And so this was our miracle. And I still can't believe that I'm standing here in front of you saying this story. But my mother and I had driven the distance to Qom from Tehran. Qom is that city where it's very religious. I was to push a letter penned by Muhammad, the mujahid, and bearing my signature into the judge's hand Our mission was to track him down just before he arrived at a weekly televised Friday prayer gathering, to which he made his way through a narrow dirt alley. The discreet path led to an open area where anxious spectators anticipated a new topic of discussion. My mother and I were asked to remain waiting in Muhammad's mother's living room until such time as Muhammad would show up to fetch me. There, my mother and I sat patiently, our legs folded in Islamic fashion on the Persian carpet. The room was devoid of any furniture, unlike our own living room back in Tehran, where many classically styled European pieces graced the 11th floor condo apartment of a brand new French-engineered high-rise building. Muhammad may have figured a little introduction about the local customs can help her get her mother accustomed to the scene and perhaps begin to feel at home during this maddening pause. I remember that as an aside, he let me know that his mother had frequently called him a rabble-rouser who cleverly frittered precious time away on dangerous pursuits. When I learned that he was 37 years of age, I inwardly corroborated with her view. He told me he had been kidnapped as a young boy and that he grew up in a military camp in Palestine with a number of other young boys. These cradle-snatched kids were raised as trained foot soldiers, steeped in the military arts to fight the Jewish state. Years later, I read about Ottoman sultans, suspicious of their own generals, who had young boys abducted in Greece and kept in special barracks, trained and bred and trusted to safeguard their hegemony over a sprawling empire. I had chanced upon a book in my sister's library by Noel Barber called Lords of the Golden Horn. In it, the adult janissaries were described as privileged troops drawn from captured Christian boys, welded into the empire from an early age, swaggering in their white turbans, loose jackets, and yellow boots. That was a quote from the book. They protected their Ottoman masters' hegemony over Greece, parts of Eastern Europe, and huge swaths of Arab lands. So I'm going to skip here. In his mother's humble home, Muhammad's letters sat on my lap the whole while as my mother and I awaited his return in silence. As it was someone else's handwriting, I dare say I felt as one on the verge of getting caught cheating at a grammar test, for it was composed with an eloquence I was unable to match. As a graduate of an American school with only an hour of Persian a day under my belt, I was humbled by his eloquence and noticed that my thoughts were now centered on wondering whether the poetry of the ancient Sufi masters would become lost on future generations. One forcibly came to sense the erudition of this rabble-rouser. Indeed, that was the first time I had felt badgered by a sense of inadequacy on account of our predominantly American curriculum at the little United Nations that was our community school in Tehran. Beyond that, it remained that if anyone in the family were sufficiently equipped to act as Muhammad's collaborator, it would have to be me. One thing school had imprinted upon us was a set of tools for critical thinking and the importance of relying on one's own judgment. It was no wonder on that fateful day that my thoughts were on a much-loved institution that had been run by a Presbyterian mission, soon to be, if not already, dissolved by a fanatical regime that reigned terror over our poetic, picturesque Persia, as it had done with the virulent gusto of sand in a desert storm. My story is only half told, without an account of the part assured by another player in our midst, as mother and daughter awaited the unknown on a Persian carpet in medieval Rome. Muhammad's mother's was a traditional Iranian home. Persian carpets covered the entire surface of each room. The only furniture was a row of cushions that leant against the modest walls. As the door opened, my heart skipped a beat for fear of being overcome by revolutionary guards. I looked up from behind a pair of weary, blinking eyes that met the figure of a kindly-looking woman who stepped over the threshold. A large, round aluminum tray of food motionlessly balancing on her head. Suddenly, it looked too good to be true, and I shuddered at the thought she may be expecting a party of guests. I flinched at the prospect of having to share our space with strangers. But to my surprise and amazement, generous portions of steaming white rice and kebabs graciously landed and were being carefully placed on the floor. She smiled at our gaze and turned back into her world, gently closing the door behind her. We ate heartily. After the dishes were cleared and Muhammad's mother returned with the welcome sound of tiny chinking glasses of tea served in the true Persian way, we spent the rest of our time anticipating how long it would take Muhammad's goatee to show up once again at the white painted wooden frame of the glass door that separated the kind woman's living room from the dreaded world outside. Counting the minutes, I sensed the presence of someone else in that space, besides the mother-daughter duo that we were. The sun shone bright outside, and stillness reigned within. The brilliant summer light that filtered through the glass pane induced a peculiar emotion that may have peaked perhaps during better times. It was heavy and blinding. I searched my heartstrings to detect any sign of fear, but touched upon wonderment instead. There was truly another being with us, but I got the sense that I alone was aware of its presence. It didn't take longer than half a minute before I recognized the person who was communicating from a different dimension, a sort of plane that I was obviously connecting onto. A question was being asked of me, and I got the sense that this presence wasn't going away without an answer anytime soon. I looked toward my mother, whose utter silence likened her to the biblical figure that had turned into a pillar of salt, as it seemed she had no desire to speak a single word or give out as much as a sigh. She seemed to have stepped out of her usual personality for a sort of chosen segment in time. So I shifted my focus away from looking for clues from the living, for it was clearly the departed who now kept me company, in a room drowned in silence, where one may have heard a pin drop, even as it could have softly landed on the kind woman's thick, wine-colored Persian carpet. Where is Yusef? I realized that I was in the presence of someone I knew, and even who was close of kin, but then perhaps it was I who tarried in his presence. How did you find me? Then I realized that if ever I was going to fathom what this was all about, this was the perfect opportunity to seize the moment in silence. So I used my thoughts as a channel. I began to sharpen my focus, and I answered him with my thoughts. I replied to my grandfather's spirit that I had suffered from my father's absence for long enough. My grandfather had passed away about a decade earlier. I was 13 when he left our world, succumbing the way he had at the age of 87 to colon cancer. Where is Yusef? I told him that our grandmother had gone to her grave taking with her the dreaded thought that her beloved eldest son was dead. And by the way, none of us were allowed to tell her where he was. That was very cruel. I told him that our grandmother had gone to a third question mark was minted by a repetition of the phrase, "Where is Youssef?" He is in Evin, and I am in pain. Go and get him. Me, little powerless me, overwhelmed most of the time and spending the rest of it talking about my father, truly a bore. But wait, help me, use me if you can. I will be your tool. Guide me, Baba Bozorg. Guide me, Grandpa, if you can, to the right place, at the right time. Can you help me make all that happen? Go and get him. That was the second time he'd said that. Further sharpening my focus, my thoughts blurted out, I'll do whatever it takes. Go and get him. That was the third time. It was empowering. Someone had given me the key to a chest of treasures. Truly, if God had been watching over us, I had for many months become numb to the feeling. There was a time, sometime after our country had turned itself upside down, when I remember feeling that the mullahs were mightier than the Almighty. But who was nudging me with encouragement in a medieval city many kilometers to the south of our capital city? Who was this lofty spirit elbowing me to bigger things than my cup was able to handle without overflowing or getting jinxed in the process? Surely my grandfather made of himself a messenger to inspire and imbue his loved ones with the spirit of better days. During his time within our realm, he loved with unmatched fervor. Was there a reason to question his concern for those who knew him as their patriarch, such as something so immaterial, apparently as far as he was concerned, as the fact of being deceased? And yes, if there was a lesson to be learned that afternoon, it definitely was that there truly was one. What a strange yet wondrous thought. I don't know if I'm over my time, but just, I don't want to throw the surprise element away. So I encourage you to read the rest, because he did come out in the end, and they did not execute him. Thank God. So it's a miracle. I still don't know how I'm telling you this, but just take it from me. It happened. Yes.
Sandra, thank you so much for reading that. I just want to take a minute to appreciate the vastness that you were able to create in the excerpts that you read. That obviously rendered in this really elegant, very elegant prose, but also this almost novelistic kind of intricacy of the characters, and you looked at the history, and I particularly loved when you philosophized a bit about the Persian language and kind of your relation to it, and with Muhammad as well, the person you're trying to get through to. Very, very, very neat. Can you just remind us the title of your book?
It's called The Book, A Humble Quest into the Hebrew Scriptures. And imagine if you were in prison for 4.5 years,
right,
and the only book they allowed you is your Bible. So he went through the whole thing and he translated
amazing.
it.
So thank you again, and I think we're going to move on. Brian, yeah?
Okay, so S.B. Goncarova is an author, animator, screenwriter, performer, and composer. She's the author of 7 books, including 3 children's chapter books. She is also the writer-producer for the Adventures with ABBA animated web series and read aloud videos featuring original music, sound effects, and theatrical storytelling. Awards include the 2020 NN Light Award for Poetry for her book Harnessing Light, and the Puffin Foundation Award, as well as the Barbara Deming Memorial Award. So,
Hi, my name is Sarah Beth Goncarova. My author name is S.B. Goncarova, and I wanted to share with you some new books that I've created. I have a 3-book series called The Adventures with Abba, and the first book in the series is Super Sleuth, which is more for the younger set for 4 through 7. And I made an animation first, actually, and did all the voices and the music and the sound effects and the animation itself. I taught myself how to do animation just for this project. And then I took every shot I represented here in the book. So shot for shot, kids can follow along. And follows everything pretty closely. The series is based on, well, it's dedicated to my nieces and nephew, who are the main protagonists are named after them, so the kids really get into the story. I started doing this during COVID. We were stuck on opposite sides of a border. I was in Canada and they were in the US, and the borders were closed. So I was only able to talk with them over Zoom. And when we did quite often. And I brought in like a keyboard, and we were kind of like making up stories, going on little adventures, and I would kind of do the music kind of underneath that to, express what was going on in the story. And so like the stories evolved into these books, the music evolved into the music for the videos that I've created for each of these books. And then the fun part is all the sound effects, and that's actually my favorite part. This is Secret Code with Heartbeat Drum. It's my latest. It's the 3rd in the series. This character is Abba. The kids call me Abba, and I guess that's me. With her keyboard scarf. And she is riding a T100 Bonneville motorbike and sidecar with her cat Caruso, who is a conductor who has conducted many orchestras all across the world, but he's retired now that he's turned 12. He's kind of perpetually grumpy, but he goes on these adventures with Abba and the kids. And then we have the kids in the airplane, and that I have a lot of Easter eggs in the story, both for the kids and for parents too. And this is actually mentioned in the first paragraph as an exact replica of Amelia Earhart's plane. And I don't mention it, but in person. I say, next to the swings are a playhouse, a slide, and a little wooden biplane modeled after a very famous biplane from a very famous pilot who traveled across oceans by herself. But we'll come back to that later. I included the music from the videos just in case anybody was interested in taking that challenge. people might ask, like, why did you use this clef? And it's because she's playing the viola, and it's viola clef. So I had to transcribe the thing into that, and that was it's crazy, but I did it. And so we have the music, and then so the main character, she's practicing her viola up in the attic, but it's overtaken by all the banging, the booms and the bangs of everybody downstairs, and she can't concentrate. And in this book, I've also included, as it is called, the secret code. I've included a secret code, a coded message, which nobody has solved yet. Hint, hint. But in every chapter, there's a secret code, and I guess I've just shown you one piece. But they all fit together in a message. So there's 13 pieces to discover, and then have to kind of work out the code. It's actually quite simple, but still nobody's gotten it yet. This was The Curious Case of the Creepy Cave. This was my first in the series, and I drew the illustrations, and I kind of purposefully drew them like not very well. Like I kind of wanted kids to be like, I could do better than that. And then do it, and then send me the pictures. And I would love that. I actually have I have a little fan who wrote about 4 chapters of her own chapter book. She was 8 or 7 at the time, and that was absolutely amazing. I mean, more than anything, that's what these books are for, is to get kids reading and get them to be, thinking creatively. And I just love that. So, and also, I mean, just reading, I mean, a sort of a mission of mine. When I was a kid, when I was 4, I was I did a very stupid thing. I learned how to read very, very, very young. And then I told my dad, who was reading to me every night, I told him I didn't need him anymore. And I mean, it kind of broke his heart, but he never came back to read to me again. And I think like my own reading skills were stunted because of that. I've always kind of struggled. So I've kind of created these read aloud videos that goes along the animations and videos. So I'm actually reading the books to the kids and doing the voices and all that and all the music. So they're all free on YouTube, all the videos. I want them to be free, and I actually do have people in as far away as Bangladesh and in Indonesia who are using my videos to learn English. I got a letter from a little girl named Arya from Bangladesh, who's 11, and she wrote to me in English, and she said that my books are helping her learn English, and she wants to be a doctor when she grows up. So, can see how proud I was. I mean, that's the sort of thing that will, that keeps me going and keeps me just going through. I mean, there's so many steps in this process of writing, creating developing the characters and the world building, and making sure that's perfect, making sure all, the recordings are all perfect, the illustrations, doing the animations, doing the music, putting it all together. I mean, there's so many parts to it that come with it that, I mean, it's definitely a labor of love, and that's my mission, basically, is to get kids reading. So, yeah, something I'm very proud of. Yeah, I hope the kids really like them, and they do. So I wanted to perform for you the voices to Super Sleuth. This is the theme song to the series, which anybody can take up and embellish as they wish. And this is So-So. She is the main character of the series, along with her little sister Lena and their little brother Adam and their aunt Abba. The kids call me Abba, so There you go. And their cat Caruso. Okay. Shh. It's no time for idle chit-chat. We are on a very important mission. You see there? That is my little sister, Lena. She may look sweet, but don't let that fool you. When she gets mad, she's a velociraptor. Oh, and there, that's our baby brother, Adam. Total troublemaker. Oops. Total troublemaker. Oh, yeah. You see the super cute tuxedo cat with the red bow tie? That's Caruso. He's licking himself. He's Abba's cat, but he kind of likes me best because I make him his favorite sardine flavored after school treats. Who's Abba? What do you mean, who's Abba? She's right there. She's our auntie. She teaches us all about music and, cool stuff like that, after school. But I digress. Our mission today is to sneak into the kitchen and locate the last super delicious cookie from the cookie jar. Tell me if you see it, okay? Shh, come on. And she jumps off, and then we have some kind of sneaky music. And the door squeaks open and wakes Caruso up, who's just taking a cat nap. And then this is by Lena. Abba, do you know where So-So is? She should be home from school any minute. I hope she didn't get lost. Again. No, she wouldn't get lost. Again. If she doesn't get here soon, I'll have to eat that last cookie we saved for her. I'm getting so hungry. She's sneaking under the table. And then who's coming? Breaks her cover. Oh no! It's Caruso giving her a big kiss. Ow. And she hits her head on the table. I'm just practicing my super sleuth skills. Not again. Okay, super sleuth, what are we making here? You'll never guess. Well, we got one chocolate chip cookie box, empty, suspicious. 4 super long rubber bands, extra wiggly. 1 paper towel roll with 2 of my glitter pens poking out the side. That's curious. 1 roll of duct tape. Whack. I know, a salad spinner. Ha, nope. And Caruso scribbles away. Scribbles the answer. And for the answer, you'll have to read the book. How's that?
Is this on? Yeah, it's good. Okay, wonderful. Sarah Beth is in the audience, or she? We think she's there. Well, Sarah Beth, if you're there, thank you so much for having read that, for having shared your wonderful project. and having delivered such wonderful scenes with such passion and joy. And of course, children's literature is always waiting to be revolutionized, and you've really done an amazing thing for children, as is evidence of your fans' letters. So thank you so much for sharing that. And do we have copies here on sale? Okay, well, wonderful. Everyone can speak to Jan about copies, and I look forward to seeing what further books you have as well as this project grows and continues to evolve. Thank you again for reading that. Do we?
Now I think it's time for me to read.
That's right.
Another book, and then if you haven't put your name on one of those little rectangle pieces of paper, there's. Well, you know, you did, I think. Here. Oh, those, well, that's only like a couple of people. If you will hold them again, you can be my Vanna White. You know the deal. You've been here before. Let me just check my pocket. Let's see. Okay, who doesn't have? You didn't fill one out. Oh, why did you right away? I put it downstairs. Backing up is so tricky. People can't back up. Okay. Are you ready for yet another reading? So, so this is The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Mayer. And, poets love poetry. So the dedications are, sort of epitaphs. I loved my friend. He went away from me. There's nothing more to say. The poem ends, soft as it began. I loved my friend. So it's a poem for F.S. by Langston Hughes in 1925. And then this is from Waiting for Saskatchewan, Fred Waugh, 1985. As the train pulls into a station in the early evening, As the train pulls into a station in the early evening darkness, you disappear. So, anyway, it says here, it's 1929 and Baxter is considered lucky as a black man to have a job as a sleeping car porter on a train that crisscrosses the continent. And so I read for you. After acres of aching slowness, the train wheezes onto a siding and stops. "Why aren't we moving?" asked Punch, the chain of his pocket watch clinking in his fingers. Out the left-hand side window, sliced rock face peers back at them. The right-hand side, a mountain meadow on the edge of a vast gorge brimming with mist. "Are we so high in the mountains we're above the clouds?" asked Punch in a very high voice. "Oh my gracious," says Judy. "Oh my golly." She holds onto Punch's arm. He pats her hand. We'll be out of here soon. Mad Mary barrels down the side aisle. A mudslide up ahead on the tracks, says Mad Mary. We'll be on our way again in no time. This porter said you asked him why the train stopped, and you didn't know. He said that we stopped for a silk train. Mad Mary tucks his watch into his breast pocket. Well, sir, this porter here's not so bright. He starts to laugh. Heh, 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 says Punch. Baxter expects he's supposed to laugh at himself too, but his lips won't drag open properly. That said Mad Mary, sometimes a delay can involve a silk train or a bear or mountain goats on the tracks. It's not an unreasonable guess. Oh, so anyway, somebody is going to win this book. No cheating. You may draw for me.
Oh, okay. Left already.
Peter is gone. But we're going to take it to Peter. No, he gets the first one, sorry. So Peter has won Indians on Vacation. Yay, Peter! Who arrived early and helped do a lot of the food prep. Yay! Yes. Okay, next. Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, what is it with the people who left early? I want you to know this will never happen again. Do not leave early so that you win a prize, okay?
Carolyn?
Carolyn won. Okay. That'll be a nice surprise for her. Okay, oh, I think the time has come, the walrus said. Yeah. Oh, suddenly, I feel sad. But I must get up in the morning and go to work, so. So could I have my co-hosts stand with me? They give me a sense of security. Okay, so these are my lovely co-hosts. Yay! Jerome and Brian. Yay! Picture of the...
The matriarch and the two hosts, yeah.
The what?
The
matriarch?
The matriarch and the two co-hosts, yeah.
Yes. The matriarch.
It's a good title for you, I think.
We'll take it. Okay. Do we look we look like soldiers.
Yeah, yes, they were soldiers.
Oh, and the double chin. Oh, no, we don't want that. How about that?
I'll have a double chin remover on
Oh.
there. Yeah.
Taking a picture.
Are you taking?
Is it taking a picture?
It's, you go
might
check?
block it.
Oh, I must hold on.
She's good. She sends her love. She had to work. She had contracts that came through late.
Okay. Okay. So we are
She's
taken?
watching. She's watching.
Yeah, you know me, no backing up. Okay. So we're sending love out to all the people who are watching on streaming or who will watch it in the future. Thank you. And our guests. Thank you so much. No. No, Jodi, it was so touching, and I'm so excited that I own this book where I can go and spend time with your beloved. Yeah.
Now we get to buy everybody else.
Yes, and Sandra, thank you so much. You could feel and hear how the vibrations of it are still with you. It was such a a huge, huge thing. And
It's so special to have shared it with you.
oh, I'm so glad you could, yeah. And Norman, beautifully done. Yeah, yeah, so, yeah, no. I just don't know if I can get through the violin part, but I'll do my best. Can I skip it and learn how later? I'm going to read it with my eyes closed. And Louise, it was such a pleasure to speak with you and you know, to hear how the cat mysteries arose and how it became a series and Sarah Beth, I love the passion you have for this project, and I miss you, you know. So blessings to you all. May you have a good week with lovely surprises and good health to everyone. And we'll be back in April. The third Thursday. I think it's the 18th. Did someone? Yeah. And you'll be here with us, won't you?
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm very happy to come here.
Yeah.
This has been a lovely evening.
Yeah, and I see that it's snowing, everyone. So be safe, okay?
It's snowing. Oh. So we're still in the middle of winter.
Okay.
That I will be launching an EP of poems by Hafiz and Rumi put to music called The Crystal Rim. Also, I think I'll probably celebrate another EP that was done and was supposed to be launched in April 2020, but of course everything got canceled. So, and I'll be accompanied by a violinist and probably the back vocalist on the first album. So it'll be great. It'll be at the Mariposa Cafe, April 28th. I'll send the information when it's clear. It'll be a 5 to 7. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Cinco set. Anything else?
I believe, what is the next, there'll be a Speak Up happening in the next 2 months. It's the sister project to launch your Soirée, so there'll be information about that coming up as well. I believe it's happening every 2 months, so it's not happening this month, but next month. So that's an event where poets get to read their work, and you'll be able to ask questions, and they get to read their work a second time. It's a very lovely evening. Happens in NDG at Phoenix Books, which is on Sherbrooke Street, not too far from Vondo Metro. That should be happening next month, the last Thursday of the month.
Is it last or the last?
Usually it's the same thing, but yes, it's usually it's the last Thursday of the month. So you can look forward to that in March. And yeah, that's. I will be publishing a book toward the middle of spring. The actual date is not finalized yet, but The Riddle of Three Crimson Doors will be coming out with Cactus Press in the next few months. So you'll get news about that as well. Looking forward to a full length poetry book. Yeah.
Yeah, well then I'll say sometime this year, and God willing, the creek
Dates are
does
fluid,
rise.
you know? Dates are fluid. Time is perceptive.
Birthing God should come out this year, which is my collection.
Wonderful. Do we have a date on that?
No, because I'm still doing corrections. But
forward to it.
but Sarah Beth, whom we heard tonight, Sarah Beth made the cover for me. So that's lovely. So be safe going home, and I look forward to seeing you again. No, the next one's April 18th. 18th.
Yeah. The third Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah, if I've got the date wrong, it's usually the third Thursday of the month.
I know, it was crazy.
I'm going to buy one.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Even though I could borrow one from two friends, but but I think I'll be able to be a nice library for it. I just found it so delightful. What you read, but also even what I saw.
Yes, all this like, I know it's so crazy.
Fresh and crazy, and I don't know, it might help to decode something in me, so.
Totally, I think totally. It's like the kind of book you can crack it open and okay, what? You know, it's like,
No, so
what is it today?
So I don't know if I have cash on me. I didn't plan on spending
Either way, I'm gonna give you a bag too. You want a bag?
Yes, of course. My,
Oh yeah, you'll look a long time. You'll look a long time before you find it.
Writer by the same name. We're not related. As far as I know. Yeah, no, Kristen's just a good book.
Okay, cool. That's so nice. That's so nice. Is she in her 60s, 70s?